Oi, oi. This is Matthew Sellers. This is his work called Blurred Vision. Can you give me a bit of a synopsis on your project, Matthew?
It's averaging the content of popular publications to see if you can still interpret their data.
And these magazines on here are what your final work from that averaging project.
Yeah.
So there's 4 magazines there. What do they represent? Which magazines in the?
Right, we've got a Heat magazine here, Kerrang magazine,
Yeah.
Knowledge magazine, and Nuts magazine.
Nice.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is the average colours from each of the magazines is represented on the cover.
Yeah.
So this rather browny pink shade represents the content of Nuts, which we all know tends to be rather pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And these are spreads from each of the magazines?
Yeah, one's from each. So again, this one's from Heat magazine.
Right.
And then we've got Kerrang magazine down here. And then obviously Nuts magazine.
Obviously Nuts magazine because of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because of that quote.
Yeah.
And then this is Knowledge magazine, which is another music-based magazine.
I haven't heard of Knowledge magazine.
Yeah, it's more like electronic music. And I had basically 2 magazines which represented a genre or like a reader base. So obviously Heat and Nuts represented male and female.
Right.
And then Kerrang and Knowledge were kind of a comparison of 2 different styles of music magazine.
Right. So why did you decide to pick those particular ones?
Yeah, that's what everyone keeps asking.
Nuts is the one that you have under your bed, is it?
The thing was, I went to W.H. Smith and was looking for magazines which I thought would represent the target audience quite well. So, I don't know, I wanted to make comparisons. That was one of my main ideas, was to make comparisons.
Right.
I thought to do that, a good way to start would be a male and female market. So, yeah. And then obviously I wanted the other, because I had to do more than just 2 magazines. So, I'd went for 4. And yeah, I wanted to be able to compare those, so that's why I chose 2 from like the same genre.
Right. And those little books down there, what do they represent?
They're just some extra work that goes alongside just to kind of explain a bit more in depth as to how these magazines were produced, the process.
And can we flick through one of those?
Little flick. This is the process book, which explains why I chose the font, all sorts of different things. Like this project progressed from one of my last projects, which was to do with interpretation and changing people's perceptions of how we view like a set of text or images.
Right.
So this kind of was like progression from that, just challenging people's perceptions.
And you wrote everything?
Yeah, this is all my copy written, just explaining like inspiration, things like that, process behind the work, so the scanning, it's me scanning.
Let's have a look.
And then I've got, how to colour average, so that just goes through the process of taking an image such as that and using processing to create an average colour, which would be that.
What that colour on the right represents the average colour from the...
Yeah, that's the before and that's the after. So that's before the processing's been done.
Well, I'm surprised. I would have thought it would have been a richer colour than that. It must be the clothing that's actually... and what's this?
This is the script that I used to colour average, which was edited from one that I found online.
Right.
It was to... This script was initially to work out R, G and B values of a pixel, and using that and some help from some people on some forums,
Right.
I managed to change it just to help me average in Photoshop and
Cool.
things. So, yeah.
And what's the other book?
This other book is just an evaluation of how I think my process went and how my work turned out, really.
Well, you have to evaluate yourself.
Yeah, you have to write like a statement of intent, which is the brief that you wrote yourself and what you wanted to achieve and what the outcomes are going to be, like what your deliverables.
Right.
And then you have to do a reflective report, which is basically just how you think it went and what you thought went well, what you thought didn't go well, what would you change if you could, blah blah blah.
So you're nice on yourself?
Yeah, you have to be harsh, so they say be realistic, so yeah. And then you have to do a unit.
But you could say that it was rubbish and I'd wasted my time.
Yeah, which is, to a certain extent, you have to put in things like that. Like, you have to put when you run into problems, so say like my scanner broke down, or
Yeah.
you know, things like that, or I had to change the text because the printers couldn't handle my font or something.
Or my tutor told me to take out all the type
Yeah. So
at the last minute.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have to do a unit evaluation, which is a skill that you've learned, and you have to write paragraphs about that. And
Right.
so yeah, obviously I learned how to colour average.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Okay, well thanks for giving me a talk through.
Thanks for coming to see it.
You're welcome. That was Matthew Sellers, filmed by Russ Sellers.
Wicked.